right,
Good
let's go.
evening, good evening. And welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. As always, we're going to go around our esteemed panel and do our introductions, and then we're going to get right into our robust conversation, starting with the man who has this plethora of fantastic art, and his name is Joe Harrington. Joe?
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Congressman Davis, both you and Nikki, for providing this platform. Again, my name is Joe Harrington. Most of my career was spent in public health and healthcare. I worked at 3 hospitals, worked with city and state health departments, retired in 2017 as the regional health officer for Cook County. It's an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to be here.
Outstanding. Well, to the man who says I threaten him to be here each and every Monday night, but he seems to be always on time. That's our very own Dr. James Miller.
Well, I'd like to just say good evening. I've missed a couple of sessions, but I'm happy to be back. My name is Dr. James Miller. I am a retired internist. After practicing about 42 years, I retired in 2019 from clinical medicine. However, I still believe in doing as much as I can to heal the community. So I'm still active trying to heal the community in a different way than I used to, in the sense that I was examining patients and prescribing medicine and giving advice. I still give advice, but I don't write prescriptions anymore. So I'm glad to be here tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to talk about some things that will be of interest and be helpful to our community.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much. I want to say hey to Sister Bonnie, who is here with us. Hi to Audrey J. Cox, who is here just as well. And we want to say hey to Johnny Diggs, who is here with us just as well. Hey, Johnny. To my colleague that tends to leave us and go have fun in the sun anytime the temperature drops below 50. That would be our very own Douglas Graham. Hey, Doug.
Hey, it's the truth, but it's not that higher than 50 where I'm at right now. I'm a retired physician like Dr. Miller. I spent 30 years working in the western suburbs. And after I retired, I worked with the congressman in his office in Washington, D.C. It really opened my eyes and my mind. I became very much interested in public health and public service. It's a real honor to be here and to be included in this panel. We're going to try and answer your questions as best we can.
Outstanding. Well, to that awesome physician who is a physician by day and a DJ by night, that's our very own Dr. Bonnie P. Thomas. Pete?
Hey, thanks, Nikki, and happy to be back. I was in New Orleans for my Xavier homecoming last week, so that was great. Looking forward to taking some questions from the community, and happy to be back amongst my colleagues.
All right. I want to say hey to Connie Taylor, who is here with us, and Angela Underwood is here just as well. And they are all saying good evening to everyone that is here. To the man who makes this possible for us each and every Monday night, to the one who tells us that true wealth is your health. That's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis. Congressman?
And it is indeed. As a matter of fact, Dr. Thompson, who won?
Of course, we beat Dillard by 45 points.
Well, Dillard is a great institution. They just don't play a lot of football. Certainly, it's a great historically Black college.
Yeah.
But let me thank all of you for being. I've just come from, I guess, our last work here for today, and it was kind of disheartening a little bit. But, you know, the statement that health is wealth, I have 2 brothers, and the 3 of us are 4 years apart. And so my sister called me on Thursday, to tell me that my youngest brother, who is now 80 years old, was in the hospital, and my other brother, who's 82, called me, and we were talking, and he says, well, you know, I got an appointment tomorrow morning myself. I said, well, you're not kidding. Guess what? He said, what? I said, I got an appointment with my doctor. tomorrow morning as well. And so I did get an opportunity to go and visit my brother out of the Little Company of Mary on Sunday in between churches and other things. And of course, he was in the bed, but he was watching the football game. And of course, just as I got there, the Bears had this miraculous run. And then the guy kicked a field goal and they won. And Willie is such a fan, he almost jumped up out of the bed. I said, boy, you better get back. He's, oh, yeah, I got a little excited. The Bears won another one. Well, life is kind of like that. There are things that will excite you. And when you think of some of the progress that we've made relative to healthcare, but also the mysteries and secrets that we have not uncovered and we have not conquered and we have not found the cures. But I was talking to a group of young people the other day, and I mentioned sickle cell anemia. And the young fella sitting in the front row said, you know, I got the trait. He said, I didn't know politicians had anything to do with that. And we ended up with just a great conversation and a great discussion about sickle cell and what's being done and the need for continuous research. And of course, I got his number and he got my number, and we're going to stay in touch. But thanks to all you experts for what you do, for what you convey. And so let's just get it on, Nikki.
Okay, well, Congressman, you're going to pick our topic for this evening.
Oh, that was for me to do?
Yes.
You know, health remains one of the top issues on people's minds in the country. Those of us who are Democrats in the House of Representatives take the position that the shutdown that we just experienced was all about trying to make sure that we save our health care, that health care delivery and the health infrastructure is one of the big economic pieces to our puzzle of having a great society, having a great country. And ever since I've been around it, people have talked about how do we reduce the cost of healthcare? And so why don't I just kind of throw that out? Everybody talks about reducing the cost of healthcare, but I don't know if we've been able to do much with that. So how do we reduce the cost of healthcare? That's my question to our physicians who are with us this evening, and to you, Joe.
I'm anxious to chime in on this. I want to go about it in maybe a different way. First, because when you talked about that, I thought of the best definition that I've ever heard for what health is. So to talk about health care, I thought it might be a great idea to start with a working definition for what constitutes health. And years ago, and this goes back, this was in early 2000, I had a chance working with Salim Al-Nuruddin, who's no longer with us, to be the executive director for his Center for African American Health. And they did an analysis of health in Roseland, in the Roseland community, and pulled together experts from around the country. And they came up with a definition for health, which I use to this day. And I'm going to tell you what that definition is. Health is defined as the behavioral, cultural, economic, educational, physical, and spiritual state of being in which individuals have the ability to enjoy life and contribute positively to their family, community, and society. So that's what, when I think of health, I think of those are the things that really constitute health. In terms of how can we change things, I think it's also important, if Dr. Mason would hear, he would say, we don't have a healthcare system. We have a disease detection and management system, because the funding is a cause for identifying disease in people and then managing disease. That's our system. And that's what people get paid to find people that are sick and manage their disease state, keep them on, keep them healthy. And so I'm going to stop there and see if maybe my colleagues have something they want to add. But I think until we can really grapple with the emphasis on the money and the money that's going into healthcare, and the cost, I mean, that's the biggest issue problem. So I'm going to stop there just to open up the conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to just chime in a little bit on this. And, when we are managing diseases, which is, as Dr. Mason often reminds us, that's what we do. We manage diseases. We don't cure a lot of things. But that process, one of the things that I've learned is that if I find a disease, or I'm aware of that disease in an individual at an early stage before it causes in-organ damage, that it becomes much less expensive to take care of that patient than it does to find it after damage has been done. I remember back when I think it was in my residency, and one of my projects that I had was to do some research and find out what was the cost of treating hypertension versus starting at an early age versus the cost of having a person that had hypertension that was not detected. And so when we started looking at that, looking at the fact that first of all, if we're treating hypertension, we prevent in-organ damage. And we are aware of all the problem with kidney failure, heart failure, heart attacks, and those kinds of things that results from uncontrolled hypertension over time. And so if we control these problems, the damage that occur is less, and the management is significantly less costly. So, and then not only that, to think about when we're looking at Joe's definition of health, if someone has a stroke, their ability to feel well and to be able to contribute not only to society but to their own care is hampered by, and so so when we look at this, is the cost. It is the cause by having a disease process that was not detected early and was not addressed early and was not controlled. So I think that the early detection and control of diseases is a very important thing in terms of reducing healthcare costs. I remember back early in my practice when often had patients who did not have insurance. And, they would come and because they were having pain or having some symptoms that was causing them a certain amount of discomfort, they would come and they would see me, and then I would evaluate them, and I would, sit down and discuss, this is the problem, here's what you need to do. And usually it means that you need to have certain tests. You need to have, maybe you need medication. You need to make some lifestyle changes. And often the problem that I ran into was that the individual say, well, I can't afford to pay for tests. I can barely afford to, I might be able to make a few lifestyle changes. I can't afford to pay for medication. So, and if I look at that, and I saw a lot of those people who maybe they took the information and depending on what the problem was, and they did the best they could. But some of them came back to see me at a later time, and the results was that an unmanaged disease, an uncontrolled disease, and the damage that had occurred was put them in a position that now the cost is much more expensive, because if they've had a stroke, if they had a heart attack, these are kind of things that cost a lot of money. If they often end up in hospitals and not being able to control their issues. So I think early detection and early management and control of the disease is so important in terms of keeping the cost down. And so oftentimes when we look at it, the penny wise, pound foolish is the scenario that I look at. If we concern about how much money we're going to spend to put people in a position that their disease can be diagnosed and possibly controlled versus waiting until they're real sick, the disease is advanced, and now I got to try to take care of them. It's going to be a much more expensive venture, as opposed to seeing a patient in the office versus a hospital day, one hospital day would probably be enough to pay for a year of outpatient treatment for most of the problem that we manage.
So I'd like to add to that, Dr. Miller. I'm going to say two things I hope are not too disturbing, but there is a professor of the School of Business on the East Coast who claims that we're using the wrong accounting system for healthcare. Mm-hmm. And as a result, we do not have stakeholder alignment. When you have the profit and loss biannually, you tend to make decisions that will maximize profits, minimize losses. That may look good on the balance sheet, but it's a very unhealthy system. Yeah. I can't think of any insurance executive who puts the cheapest tires on his private jet when he flies across country. That's not how he rolls, right?
Yeah.
And when he makes an investment, he doesn't go to the cheapest advisor to make the investment. He goes upscale. I think for us to have affordable healthcare, we have to go back and look at what are the pieces of legislation that keep us from having stakeholder alignment. And I think that's where the problem lies. So for instance, when you watch television now, you cannot watch a TV show without 5 ads for very expensive medications. And it turns out the people who do the most advertising are those people with the most expensive medications. That can't help the price of those medications. And by the way, there's absolutely no correlation between the money they spend on research and the money they spend on advertising. One is far greater than the other. So here's a great opportunity to start to address the problem of expensive medications and say to them, hey, wait a minute. If you do X, you have to be accountable for this, because that hurts people more than it helps them. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to have a system of accountability rather than the annual P&L. Be accountable for those decisions. If you jack up the price of your medication so people can't afford it, that's more of a harm than a benefit. There must be some kind of remedy for that. Another really credible analogy is where armed forces are concerned, do they get the best planes? Do they get the best tanks? When they go to war, they're given every high-tech possibility. But you go into the physician's office and we're shackled. We're kept from using those things that we know will be in our patient's best interest. So again, I think that legislatively, we have to create a stakeholder alignment so that when you make that decision, it isn't just to maximize shareholder value. It should be to maximize community value. Yeah. It's not that I'm a communist, but I just understand that without a healthy nation, you're not going to have a healthy economy.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with all my colleagues. And just to put things into perspective, I mean, currently we spend on average about $4.6 trillion on our healthcare.
Yeah.
17.6% of our GDP on healthcare. And yet we are last in all of the developed nations in terms of health outcomes.
Yeah.
So something's wrong. And to all of my colleagues' points, to Dr. Doug's points, like you're spending money and we're not getting, it's almost like going to a grocery store and you spent $500 and you got $200 worth of groceries. That's a problem. I mean, it's a problem that you spend $500 for groceries, right? But it's a problem when you're walking out with $200 worth of groceries. So I definitely think we have to relook at how we're spending money, who we're spending money on, and to the extent that we can, to Dr. Miller's point, flip. Okay, what are we really paying for? I know it's more profitable that we spend money on the ER visits and hospitalizations, and that's where the cost goes up. But if we can spend money on the front end of getting more patients connected to a primary care doc to even diagnose the uncontrolled blood pressure. There are many people working great jobs with great insurance. They haven't been to the doctor in 16 months. They don't know they have uncontrolled high blood pressure, which eventually damages endothelial blood vessels that supply the heart and brain and kidney. Now you're setting this person up for chronic disease, hemodialysis, potentially stroke, heart attack, and several ICU visits or hospital stays. That cost is through the roof, as opposed to getting that person connected. I mean, it should be to Doug's point. I'm not a communist either, but like you should, it should be mandatory. You know that you go to see your doctor a certain percentage of the time. You know, like it should be mandatory. Why? Because we're trying to keep something that's potentially controllable into a situation that's uncontrollable, and of course with ballooning healthcare costs.
Yeah, I want to jump in and provide some context from my experience in a couple of different fields, and actually take a step back in some respects. I'm on the board of Cook County Health, and county care is our managed care system. They're the largest Medicaid managed care system in the state. And in a meeting about 2 or 3 months ago, I asked a question about utilization based upon age. I was just curious. And it really validated what I suspected. There is a significant fall off in utilization. That's people coming in, getting their routine checks and screenings at around the age of 20. You know, that children in elementary and high school are required to have examinations annually. Adults aren't. There's no requirement. They don't. Once you get out of high school, there's no requirement. So people go to the doctor when they're sick, when they don't feel good. Then after 30, 40 years, they show up and they get hypertension or they get diabetes. You know, they haven't been to a doctor in 30 or 40, or they've developed cancer.
Or both.
Now it may not be treatable or manageable.
Right.
And so that's what happens. That's one. There's a significant drop off on primary care. So what people are not looking at is what may happen if men were getting their mammograms, men were going to see the doctor annually, or getting their PSAs. The things that we could do to better manage health. So that's one. Number two, my cousin moved to France maybe 20 years ago. He's been living in France now. He actually teaches in France. He had prostate cancer. He never saw a bill. Universal health care. Never saw a bill. Got all of his treatment taken care of. Actually, they made sure, because they actually made arrangements if he needed to get food at home, so he wouldn't have to go anywhere. There's a different approach to healthcare in some of those other countries. And that's why they have better outcomes, because they're outcomes focused.
Yeah.
Ours, again, is a disease detection and management. That's what we're in the business of. And, you know, there are people that are making money. Hospitals are not making money, but drug companies are. They're making big money. Doctors are getting a decent fixed income, but insurance companies are meeting their margins and they're making money. So where the money is in the insurance companies, because they have actuarials and they're making money and they're growing. And the pharmaceutical industry, they're making money. Everybody else is paying.
So I'm going to jump in on that one, Joe, because what we're really talking about is election campaign reform. When you have these large industries who can contribute to political action committees, they can influence legislation. Then we lose our democracy. We're no longer having one man, one vote. We're having large organizations changing the law to benefit them and their shareholders. I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. You will never have affordable health care as long as you have big industries who can essentially come in and change the vote in the House of Representatives and the Senate. I witnessed it when I was there in Washington, D.C. I saw one industry come in and change a vote overnight just by contributions. So if you're really concerned about health, that has to change. One man, $1, one vote. And that would change a lot of what goes on in Washington, D.C. and affects the rest of us.
Yeah. One thing I like to add, obviously we can't make it mandatory for people to get health care. But you know what? If we create a system that remove those difficult things in terms of people getting health care, as we've talked about in certain countries where there are no costs. Remove those things that deter people from getting health care. Now that becomes and you grow up with that, and it's never an issue. I think that those are things that can help to encourage people, and at least won't discourage people from going to see a doctor. I mean, there's some other things that has to happen along with that, but that's one factor that we could possibly do something about and remove that particular thing that deter people from going to take care of their health. And I think another thing is to make certain that it is relatively easy for people to see their primary care doctor. And maybe it should be a little bit more difficult for them to be in a hospital. You know, I mean, sick people need to be in a hospital, but people who are not as sick and can do well as an outpatient should be like we can make it easy. Sometimes they may not, because the ER doc said, well, I can't get an appointment for this guy in a week, and I'd feel fine sending him home if I know that he could be seen, within a week. So if we can remove some of those stumbling blocks that keep people from following a system that is really the system that works and get them less tuned to saying why they won't go or why they can't go. And so those are things that I think that we need to work on, is making certain that the things that prevent people from going to doctors or going to get their care as an outpatient, that as much of that is erased from the system, and that people are encouraged, people are educated to understand what is best for them. Because a lot of time what I see now is that people don't tend to go to the doctor until they're sick. And so they're going to see a stranger, and they don't intend to come back unless they're sick again. So they don't develop a relationship with that person. And that person who should be advising you, we're talking about, if we say that your health is the most important thing you got, and that it is even more important than your wealth, then we should put more emphasis and more work on making certain that is something that is done well, taken care of well, and promoted well. And at the end of the day, we all will save money in terms of, if people are not as sick, it costs less to take care of them. And so if we can prevent some of these disease processes from causing the end organ damage from advancing before we can intervene, that would do a lot to cut costs. Because when someone come in, and if they got an advanced disease. Let's just say, they had high blood pressure. They didn't get it. They hadn't seen a doctor. It hasn't been taken care of. Now they come in and they're having symptom of a heart attack. And indeed they go on, they've had a heart attack. It's going to cost a lot more for one day in the ICU than it would probably 10 years of outpatient care for that individual. Taking if they need medicine, if they need equipment. So I think if we can figure this out, how to relieve or remove those things that are deterring people from seeking the healthcare, along with the education, along with the urging and make it easier to go by that route, because that's the route that we need to be going by if we're going to cut the cost. Otherwise, the cost is going to continue to rise. As long as we're intervening at a time when people have advanced disease, it's going to cost more with every patient that has a stroke but didn't do anything when they had the high blood pressure prior to having a stroke.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in.
So we talk about the social determinants. So we talk about the social determinants of health all the time, but this really sounds like the political determinants of health. Kay Rita is here and she says good evening. Bonnie Schmetley is here and she says good evening. Mary Ballinger is here and she says good evening to everyone as well. Sandell Scott is here. Hey, Sandell. And Sandell says hello to everyone as well. Dorothy Murphy is here and she says hello to everyone. Angela Underwood says other countries also do not use as many additives in their food, such as here in the U.S. Do you think the U.S. will start regulating these big food companies more to add healthier or natural ingredients? I see Joe shaking his head before we can even finish our question. This is affecting our health terribly. So, Joe, why don't you take that and then make your statement so Angela can get her answer?
Well, basically, you're talking about a for-profit system.
Yeah.
There's no money in getting people to eat healthy. I mean, actually, at this point, more meals are eaten away from home than at home.
Mm-hmm.
I see people eating in their cars. They stop at McDonald's, but they don't get. They start drinking and dipping into the fries before they get home. I mean, eating patterns in this country have changed significantly over the years. So again, there's no real financial motivation or profit in getting people to eat healthy, because fast food industry, there would be no fast food industry if we were really talking about getting people to eat healthy. And the point that I want to make, and it picks up on something that Dr. Miller was talking about, and we get back, because I just want to make this point quickly. When I was working for the health department in the 80s, I managed a citywide program focused on blood pressure. And I worked with a cardiologist, Dr. Frank Douglas, who actually wound up going and working for Ciba Geigy. But he said then, this is in the 80s, he said there are only 3 symptoms of high blood pressure. 3 symptoms: heart attack, stroke, and kidney failure.
Yeah.
So those, keep that in mind. That's what you're headed toward. And that's what Dr. Miller was talking about.
See, but Joseph, what we're really talking about is resource allocation. Like I said, your farmer can grow all that high fructose corn syrup that goes into all those candy bars that we see, and he can make all that money. But down the line, that creates tremendous healthcare costs. So I don't know if it's a question of food additives. It's really a question of resource allocation. I think we still subsidize the production of tobacco. That's a problem too. So as I said, we do not have stakeholder alignment. If all of those farmers were held accountable for that high fructose corn syrup, and that profits that they made were put back into the healthcare system, I think we could do a better job. But the problem is the money's going out of healthcare, not into healthcare. So that's something that we're going to have to adjust and adapt to.
Yeah.
Or deal with.
I think that one of the other thing too is that everybody is trained. Our lives are built around things that we are trained to do. We're introduced to certain kinds of tastes and we come to like and appreciate that. And when something is different than that, we tend to reject that a little bit. So what I'm saying is that if you go to the restaurant, their interest is to sell you some food. Okay. And they have to understand. So they first understand what it is that you like. What is your taste going to be calling for? They're not really concerned about your health. And I think this is the people that really are doing the things that are hurting people are not really aware enough or care enough about what might be negative. They're concerned about their profit. They're concerned about making their living. And if their living is to sell you something, that's what they're doing. You know, Dr. Graham talked about when you go to the checkout counter, you're seeing all kinds of. You know why? Because they know that you see that sugar or the sweet stuff up there. That 9 times I wish I could just sit there and sometime and just calculate how many people pick up candy and stuff that if it wasn't right there, they would probably not eat that or wouldn't buy it. So they create. Their purpose is to create a sale, and so when we look at it like that, and someone don't have the understanding and has been trained to want it, then it's right there, and I can afford it. Most of the time, people don't have the discipline to. Most people don't have the discipline to just resist it. Until something bad happened to them, or somebody is really well trained. But most people, say, okay, I'm just going to eat a little bit and I'll be fine. Just one candy bar. They'll take 2 or 3 because they plan to eat the other one at a different time. So
because they got the candy bars on sale too for $2. Dr. Miller, if you got one, it's $2.29, but if you get 2, it's $2.
Can I jump in right there? I think Dr. Miller raised a very important point as sort of the resident pastor here. First of all, you all, I thank God for each and every one of you who commit your lives to wanting to make people healthy and even being here on this platform just to share information, because the Bible says my people perish for a lack of knowledge, right? Yeah. And so even as we share because we want people to have knowledge and to understand what they need to do and how to make themselves healthier. But to Dr. Miller's point, I want to, as you were talking, what came to me, what we often talk about, and or at least should talk about more, is really stewardship, right? The spiritual concept of stewardship of the body, how God expects us to be good stewards, to honor him with our bodies, to take care of the temple, right? That is a spiritual discipline. That is a spirit, just like prayer is important, just like worship is important and giving is important. The stewardship of our bodies, as the Bible says, the temple of the Holy Spirit, he expects us to refrain from health destroying practices. That's what God expects, that we would refrain from that. And so that's why platforms like this and the things you all do on a daily basis are so important, because we want to give the information. And so when I learned about sugar, and the dangers of it, I didn't always know that. Hey, it was red Kool-Aid all day. You know how that goes in our communities, right? I learned to cut back on this. Matter of fact, I barely seldom drink soda. I just raised that point to say that once we get the knowledge, hopefully that we will also know that God, it is an expectation of God. It is a spiritual discipline that that we take care of our bodies. Because again, I mentioned oftentimes on this platform, 3 John 2 said, God said, I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health. That's what the Bible says, even as your soul prospers. So we in the church, those who believe and have a faith system, we cannot act like this is not a priority and something that is not important to God and to our walk with God, because he expects us to take care of our bodies.
Yeah. Well, we are in a war, and the war is for our money, or your money, and the those that supply, they're supplying it in a way they're in a way of convincing you to by whatever means necessary to give them your money, because that's ultimately what they want to do. Exchange is to exchange the place where that money is out of your pocket and possession into their possession, which means that they have to give you something. So so when we look at the cost of all these things, Dr. Graham was talking about medicine, the advertisement of medicine, on TV, which I still don't quite understand that you're advertising something to a person that can't just go and buy it. You're advertising it to patients, but patients can't and don't really. I'm going to spend the time to understand the effect of a medicine, the side effects of a medicine, or whether or not to understand whether or not I should be taking this medicine. But we're advertising them, and I'm sure they're advertising in the hope that at least this person will ask their doctor to help them. But the whole thing is about selling that medication. It's not really about the health of the patient. It's part of the exchange. I want to exchange where your money rests right now from your account to my account. And that's sort of the way our system is. Is for those that have something to get the most that they can out of it, regardless of whoever suffer or whoever give, long as they're giving it.
Can we say, I'm going to ask a question. So, and I never, maybe it's been said and I just never heard it. But to your point, Dr. Miller, can we say that capitalism is one of the social deterrents? Social determinants, excuse me, of poor health, of what's happening. Can we say that capitalism is one of those? We talk about, poverty and other social determinants of health. I've just never heard capitalism being one of those. So can we fairly say that?
Yeah,
I want to jump in and answer it.
Yeah.
But if you direct to Dr. Miller, I'll let Dr. Miller.
No,
answer.
Or anyone. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, anyone. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back because what I think you were getting ready to say, the social deterrence to health. I think it's more a social deterrent to health
that's it.
than a social determinant of health. Because of that approach to healthcare, we get the outcomes we do. And that's sort of implied in what we've been talking about. And to build off of that, it was Congress that approved direct-to-consumer marketing. There was a time when there was no, and it was against the law to directly advertise medicines publicly. And the industry fought to change the law. And as a result, what happened is people see a commercial, and that's what Dr. Miller implies. And they will go to their doctor's office now. I saw this drug on TV. And do you think that drug would help me? That changed the whole paradigm. When you got people going to ask for drugs because they saw something on TV. And I'm not going to mention the drug right now, but a lot of people are losing weight but not getting healthy.
Yeah.
Because a drug that says you can lose weight and eat anything that you want. That doesn't mean you'll be healthy. Yes, you can lose weight, but you may not be healthier. Your health may get worse over time. But again, we do have a system that's based upon profit. And certain industries have a loud voice. The drug companies are one, as well as the insurance companies.
So what you're saying is that
don't think they operate not for profit and don't make a lot of money.
if you don't own anything, then you don't benefit a certain way from capitalism. Because you don't have a way to really share in the profit. I mean, if you have a job, of course you're compensated for what you do. And so that's the fixed income that was mentioned earlier. But if you really want to benefit from capitalism, you need to own something.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
we
think
have a question
there's.
from Intel.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think going back to one of our questions is how do we, financially incentivize folks. And I think some insurance companies do this to a certain degree because they give people gift cards to come in and get their annual exam. And I'm telling you, patients will beat
Oh,
down
wow.
the door because they said, I need my gift card. Okay. So I think that there's something to that, right? So if we're incentivizing patients to make bad decisions, why can't we more? I'm just saying,
Yeah.
more incentivize them to make better decisions. And so what does that mean? It might mean credits into their account if they come in a certain number of visits, if they lose a certain amount of weight, if they are if their indices get better, right? So A1Cs and kidney functions, blood pressure readings. You were talking about let somebody think that, okay, I can potentially access up to $2,000 a year if I have 3 consecutive normal blood pressures. You watch folks stay away from salt pork and fried chicken.
Yeah.
If I know $1,000 would be deposited in my account if I can, and guess what? That money pales in comparison to the money that we're spending on, or I should say, we meaning the healthcare industries are spending on stuff like advertisements to patients, or to consumers. So I just think maybe that's a route to go. I just thought about that. Like, patients will be like calling me like nonstop, trying to come in to get that $25 gift card just so that their insurance company can give them that gift card so they have their physical. And I'm like, what if we did more of that?
Dr. Thomas, you hit on something. I can tell you from my own church experience as a pastor, we've had programs at our church about hypertension, about immobility, various type of things. So our partnership that we have with Rush. And I promise you, even at my church and my members, when we had the programs, particularly when we did this hypertension program, Abundant Living, once we started talking about, you would get a gift card for getting screened and all of that. I didn't have no problem people signing up. I really didn't. No, just what you said, right? There was not a problem for people to, and that saved some of my members' lives, because some were in the high hypertension. They was in the stroke range, whatever. Yeah, I know if I'm saying it right? But they was way up there, and I know because they got that intervention, they got that $25, $50 gift card, and they also got screened, and I didn't have no problem. So to your point, that may be a way again of sort of getting some changes and getting people where they need to be in terms of the doctor and addressing their health. So I just wanted to sort of back you up on that from just some real life experience through my church.
Let me provide a real context for that. That $25 gift card could save the insurance company money because that person may not need their heart replaced. It's a different economic paradigm.
Yes.
They're not just giving you the gift card
Yes.
so you could do something, but you come in, if you do what you're supposed to, you may not have that heart attack that they're going to help pay for.
That's right.
That's the incentive. The incentive is still money. I just want to be clear.
For sure.
We're not talking about where the money, we're still talking about money.
Yeah.
The insurance company has an incentive to keep you healthy, because the less often you have major procedures, the less money comes out of their pocket.
Right.
Drug companies only make money when you use the drugs. And the more you use the drugs, the more money. So it's a capitalist system. That's the paradigm.
For sure.
And I can't remember the movie, but it still applies. Follow the money.
Follow the money. Yeah.
Then you'll know. Follow the money.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
So
when we started this off, one of the things I said, we got to remove those disincentives, and then you just added that maybe we should add more incentive. We got to figure that out in terms of what it is that and then we have to also look at as you said, drug companies. How do you stop them? I don't see any stopping. They're powerful. They got lots of money, and so they don't mind spending it to make more money. So I don't know how you stop them, but but some of these kinds of things have to be addressed in order for us to, if we're going to ever bring down the cost of healthcare. They don't really care. Drug companies don't care about the cost of healthcare as long as they are getting a big piece of that pie, because they are driving the cost. That's the problem. So it's the fox watching the chicken coop here.
Oh gosh.
The answer is take a pill.
Fox like chicken. They like to eat chickens. And you hire the fox to watch the chicken coop. When you come back, the fox is gone and you got no chickens.
That's a good one, Dr. Miller. That's a good one.
Pro Chicken's in trouble. Well, with that being said,
Yeah,
we have a ton of comments. We have a ton of comments and we got some questions. And I promised that we would get back to your questions on next week, only because it is our time. And the person who keeps sending me the potato chip question, I promise we are going to answer that question for you all next week. So with that being said, we're going to do our Until Next Mondays, because it's our time. Want to remind everyone that the temperature is dropping. If you have not gotten your flu vaccine or any of your updated vaccines, such as your COVID vaccine, flu vaccine, RSV, or if you have just not gotten your doctor's visit, your yearly checkup in, let's make sure that we do that, because the season is changing and it is that time of year. Remember to bundle up. And if you are in a place and you think you need a mask on, there is a new strand of COVID out here that is highly contagious. So we're just going to remind you, keep a mask and use it if you need to. And don't forget to wash your hands. Well, Doug, you're until next Monday.
So I got two thoughts, Nikki. And one is, when I was a physician and I took the Hippocratic Oath, it starts out, first, do no harm. And this is when we talk about stakeholder alignment. If you produce something that causes ill health, there should be some accountability for that. So that's kind of where my thinking is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Miller, you're until next Monday.
Well, I think that I'd just like to say, right now we do not have a system to remove these disincentives to healthcare. But I think that Reverend Field talked about something that is probably important to most people, and that is that most people do care about what it is that they've been blessed with, and so I think that value. So I'm going to say value your health, value your life, and I don't think anybody really like to suffer. I don't think anybody like to be in pain. There are preventative things because diseases cause suffering and pain. So one of the things that you have to do for yourself is to make certain that I'm going to be in charge of doing everything I can to prevent me from reaching a situation where I'm not suffering and I'm not in pain. Now, you might not be able to control it all, but take that, make that a real concern. And I know everybody want that, but you got to work at that. Nothing, comes without any work. It takes work in order to be able to achieve the goals and the objective that we all want. So I'm saying work to try to achieve that in your life.
Outstanding. Well, Dr. Thomas, you're until next Monday.
I would say until next Monday. Just want to piggyback off of my colleagues, Reverend Fields, and Pastor Dr. James Miller, that you should, I get wanting to, as a community, we can't put our health in the hands of someone else who clearly has a different set of priorities, right? So healthcare industry, it's an industry. Like they're out to make money. They, meaning hospitals, insurance companies, the whole not drug companies. So as individuals, people, the community, people of faith, has to put our faith in God and make decisions that are in the good interest, in the best interest of our families and of our communities. And so it does not, and it does mean sometimes you cannot give in to your just immediate desires, right? Because sometimes you're stressed and you need, you want those neurotransmitters to be higher, and so you reach for a candy bar, you reach for some sugar, and those things are short lived, right? And they destroy organs over time, right? Pancreas and endothelial layers of the blood vessel. So I just want to encourage the community to make good decisions, to be prayerful, um, and meanwhile, we'll go to war with the folks about creating a system that's fair. And so I commit that to you, that I'll go to war, and my colleagues here will go to war for you.
Outstanding. Well, Joe, you're until next Monday.
Well, I've got two, but they'll both be brief. I promise they'll be very brief. The first, as I listened, I was reminded of the Spike Lee movie, Do the Right Thing. I'm admonishing people to do the right thing. The other thing that came to mind, and this is an homage to Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, who's struggling right now, who said, particularly in these times, keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Those are my two.
All right, outstanding. Well, Pastor Sai, you're until next Monday.
Yeah, I also have two things as well. First of all, I do want to reiterate again how God expects us to be good stewards of our bodies, right? And get the information what we need to do. But also with that, the parable of the Good Samaritan. But we have a responsibility to care for the sick. That's a biblical responsibility, and that comes through Luke chapter 10, parable of the Good Samaritan. You can read it for yourself, because in that text of Luke chapter 10, the man was left for half dead, right? Also, another passage, woman had the issue of blood. She spent all she had on the doctor. The system couldn't help her. So we have a responsibility to care for the sick. And to Dr. Thomas' point, who mentioned about fighting for a fair system, I think I would love if we just had the time to talk about the merits. And I've done some advocacy work over the years of gun violence and things of that nature. We talk about health justice, right? And at the core of health justice, it really believes that everybody has a right, to live healthy. And it seeks to just dismantle all the structural and policy barriers and things of that nature that hinder us in America as people having good health. And so health justice is something that I wish we had time to really discuss, because I think maybe that's where it comes from. As you talk about, Dr. Tom, it comes from the ground up, community up, right? That pushes for a system, right? Justice as it concerns the health, to eliminate all of the disparities and all the things that hinder us from having a good healthcare system and people having good access to healthcare. So with that, till next time, I would love we've had that conversation.
Outstanding, outstanding. I am going to read one comment off Instagram, and that is actually to Pastor Sai. Pastor Sai, Johnny Savory says, thank you so very much for the forum on Friday. You were phenomenal when you brought life to health, those who had been formerly incarcerated, and speaking about your church and how the healthcare issue is such a problem. Thank you so much. Thank you so much until even in the forum, I stood and said it was good to hear a pastor talk about the healthcare system and how he would want to help. That's why me and 3 of my friends came to your church on Sunday, and we will be back.
And I wasn't there.
I wanted to actually read his statement that he put on Instagram.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
as always, Congressman, take us home.
Well, in spite of the challenges as we approach Thanksgiving, and I actually visited 5 churches on Sunday, had a wonderful time, and after church, went to a birthday party where fellow proposed to get married. Paul Jakes proposed at his birthday. And of course, there was gaiety, and the churches were so inspirational because practically all of them made provisions to provide help for people during the Thanksgiving period. I mean, turkeys and dressing and all of the things that people can give. And so this notion of keeping hope alive, plus my favorite deacon at one of the churches, well, I didn't go to that church, but kind of like my favorite deacon transitioned and I thought of some of the fun that we've had with him at church. And so I guess even though we may not have solved the problems, I take the position that problems are pretty much like babies. The more you nurse them, the more they grow. And sometimes it looks like that's what we're doing. But we also provide directional solutions as well. So thanks to all of you. And we add to Joe's early comments about the Reverend Jesse Jackson and keeping hope. And so there's been a lot of focus and a lot of tributes given to Reverend Jackson during the last week. And I guess if we keep hope alive, we'll be alive. And then when the time comes to leave, we probably will have a positive attitude. Those of us who believe that you're going up yonder as opposed to going down under, it's going to be all right. So have a wonderful evening. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you all.
Congressman. God bless everybody. Take care.
Thank you.